One of the biggest mistakes engineers make when trying to legally stay in the United States is assuming that their degree or job title will automatically make them eligible for an EB2 NIW. And I understand why. Engineers are trained to think in clear categories. You're a mechanical engineer, a software engineer, a civil engineer, and you're doing something really important. So it feels logical that immigration should work the same way. But USCIS doesn't evaluate cases based on your title, your diploma, or how strong your resume looks, or how important your field is. They evaluate your work through a legal framework, what your proposed endeavor actually is, what impact it has, and what evidence supports it. And in 2026, this distinction matters more than ever. Many of the RFEs and denials I see for engineers filing EB2 NIW petitions aren't because they lack qualifications. They happen because the endeavor was framed too broadly and the benefits of the endeavor explained too vaguely from the beginning. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how USCIS actually evaluates proposed endeavors related to engineering fields and how to use that lens to choose the right immigration strategy, whether it's a temporary visa, a green card petition, or a long-term plan that combines both. USCIS doesn't deny engineers because they aren't qualified. They deny them because the endeavor is framed incorrectly. One of the most important things to understand is this. USCIS does not evaluate professions. They evaluate proposed endeavors. Many engineering petitions make the same core mistake. They present the occupation as the endeavor instead of a specifically legally framed mission. For example, saying, "My endeavor is to work as a mechanical engineer," is far too vague for a national interest waiver. USCIS needs to understand what exactly are you advancing, why it matters to the United States, and how your work extends beyond simply filling a role for one employer. If that story isn't clear, USCIS can't approve your NIW petition, even if your technical background is very strong. A major source of confusion for engineers comes from comparing themselves to researchers. Academic and research profiles usually have peer-reviewed publications, public citations, grant funding, clearly documented public impact. Engineering work, especially in industry, looks very different. Most engineers work on private or confidential projects, proprietary systems, internal technologies. That doesn't mean the work lacks impact. It means the evidence has to be framed differently. So what does USCIS actually look for instead? First, a defined endeavor. Not engineering, but what problem are you solving? Why does it matter at a national level? Second, impact beyond the employer, such as public infrastructure, government or defense contracts, licensed or deployed technologies, adoption across industries or organizations. Third, independent validation, including expert testimonial letters, professional licensing, external collaborations, public-facing or regulated projects when available. USCIS isn't expecting engineers to publish papers. They're expecting a coherent, well-supported story of impact. Let's talk about what actually moves the needle. Engineering work tied to government or public sector contracts, critical infrastructure, defense, healthcare, energy, or telecommunications, roles involving research and development, design of novel or complex systems, hands-on technical problem solving on a large scale. Strong cases often involve engineers who collaborate across organizations, hold professional licenses, contribute to technology used beyond a single employer. Now let's talk about evidence that's often overvalued and risky. These include internal job description with no external context, confidential projects that aren't framed for USCIS, project managers with engineering degrees but no technical innovation, positions without proof of engineering impact or innovation. A strong engineering case is built on what your work does, not what your title says. This is exactly why so many engineers come to me after a RFE or denial. They're highly skilled, but no one ever translated their work into a framework USCIS could actually evaluate. If you're unsure whether your engineering work can be framed in a way USCIS will understand, that's why we offer a free high-skill visa evaluation before you file and before you take unnecessary risks. And you can find the link to that evaluation in the description below. One of the hardest conversations I have with engineers who want to pursue an NIW is telling them to wait or even no. Many engineers believe they can gather evidence, but in reality, they can't yet support a legally coherent endeavor or show they are well positioned. Filing too early often leads to RFEs that question the entire case, weak records that are very difficult to fix later. Your proposed endeavor must be defined first, supported consistently, built to withstand scrutiny from day one. Here's the strategic principle to remember. You can't change course halfway through a petition. A rushed filing often does more harm than good. At a high level, EB2 NIWs can be great for strong engineers with a clear, nationally important endeavor and a verifiable track record of success. The right strategy is never about what worked for your friend or your colleague. It's about your individual evidence, timing, and your risk tolerance. So here's a takeaway. Your degree or job title does not determine your EB2 NIW will get approved. How your work is framed and evaluated does. USCIS looks at your proposed endeavor, the impact of your work, and whether the evidence actually supports that story. When engineers run into trouble, it's usually because that strategy wasn't clear from the beginning, and they lacked evidence. And when many engineers hear terms like extraordinary ability, they immediately assume it doesn't apply to them. In my next video, I explain why some of the strongest EB1A cases I've won were for people working completely behind the scenes, engineers and technical professionals whose name were never public, but whose impact was undeniable. If that sounds like you, I strongly recommend watching that next video right here. See you there.